Hey viewers, in this video we are diving into Fast and Furious 7. We will break down the storyline often a concise plot summary and take a closer look at the cast and their character. We will also discuss the film production detail and box office performance. To wrap things up, and we will share our overall review along with personal reaction to the movie. So let's get started. Why Fast and Furious 7 is a movie worth discussing, not in terms of plot twist or action beat, but as a cinematic event, a film that represents a turning point in a long running franchise and a modern blockbuster filmmaking. At its core, this film sits firmly in the action blockbuster genre, but by the seventh installment, this series is no longer just about speed or adrenaline. It has evolved into a hybrid of action, crime, and globe trotting spectacle shape for a worldwide audience. What makes this particular entry stand out is how confidently it embraces that identity. It does not pretend to be grounded realism, but it does not cast subtly. Instead, it leans fully into scale, emotion, and myth making, which is exactly why it continues to be talked about years later. Our major reason this film deserve attention is its director James Wan, known primarily for his work in horror. Wan Wan was an unexpected but inspired choice for the franchise. His background brings a noticeable shift in tone and style. He understands tension, rhythm, and visual storytelling, and he applies those skills to action in a way that feel polished and intentional. Under this direction, action sequences are not just loud or chaotic; they are carefully staged, visually clear, and designed to feel cinematic rather than merely explosive. This gave Furious 7 a smoother, more controlled energy compared to some earlier entries. From a production style perspective, the movie represents peak blockbuster craftsmanship of the mid 2010. Everything is bigger, clearer, and more ambitious. The cinematography favors sweeping shots and dynamic camera movements, making an action feel grand rather than claustrophobic. Editing is fast but coherent, allowing viewers to follow the spectacle without losing their sense of space. The sound design and music amplify the experience, creating moments that feel engineered to play well in packed theater around the world. Another reason this movie is worth discussing is how it reflects the evaluation of the Fast and Furious franchise itself. When started as a relatively small street racing film, has by this point transformed into a full-scale global action brand. This film fully accepts that transformation. Cars are still important, but they are now part of a much larger visual language that include extreme stunt, emotional location, and heightened drama. This shift says a lot about how franchise adapt over time to audience expectation and box office realities. The film is also significant because of its emotional weight behind the scene, which subtly influences its tone and presentation. While we avoid story detail, it's impossible to ignore that the production faced real world challenges that shape its final form. The care taken in direction, pacing, and presentation reflect an unusual level of respect for the material and the people involved. That seriousness gives the movie a resonance that goes beyond standard action entertainment. From an industry standpoint, this film is case study in studio confidence and risk management. Universal Pictures invested heavily in production, marketing, and global appeal, and the result justified that investment. The movie demonstrates how a franchise can balance familiarity with freshness, keeping the core identity intact while bringing in a new director and expanded visual ambition. As a reviewer, warming up this discussion means recognizing that Fast and Furious 7 is not just another sequel. It represents a moment when a franchise fully understood that what it was, who it was for, and how to deliver spectacle with emotional impact. Its genre execution, directorial vision, and high level production style make it a standout example of modern blockbuster cinema. This is why the film remains worth talking about, not because it's perfect, but because it captures a specific moment in film history where action movies became larger than life, unapologetically bold, and deeply connected to their audience. This film stands as one of the most expensive and complex production in the Fast and Furious franchise, and its production budget reflects both its blockbuster ambition and the extraordinary circumstances surrounding its development. From a financial perspective, the movie was designed as a large scale global action film requiring a level of investment that went well beyond earlier entries in the series. The estimated production cost of Fast and Furious 7 is generally placed between 190 million and 250 million dollars. This wide range exists because the film budget was affected by factors that are not typical for a standard sequels. During production, the project faced an unexpected interruption that led to extended filming schedule, additional crew cost, and significant post production work. These delays increased expenses related to equipment rental, location permits, insurance, and staff baggage. As a result, what may have initially been planned as a low cost sequel expanded into one of Universal Pictures' most expensive production at the time. A large portion of the budget was allocated to design, action, and execution. The Fast and Furious franchise rely heavily on elaborate stunt work involving customized vehicle control, destruction, and complex choreography. These sequences require highly trained stunt teams, safety specialists, extensive testing, all of which contribute to higher cost. While practical effects remain a key part of the franchise identity, Fast and Furious 7 are rely heavily on visual effect to enhance realism and scale. The integration of practical stunt with computer generated imagery require advanced post production pipelines which significantly increase expenses. Visual effect became one of the most resource intensive elements of the production. The film required detailed digital work to ensure continuity and polished across its large set pieces. This involved motion capture, digital compositing, and high-end rendering, all handled by specialized effect studios. Such work is time consuming and costly, particularly when executed at a level suitable for a major theatrical release in an international market. Another major area of spending was talent compensation. By the seventh installment, the franchise core cast had become major box office draw, allowing them to command higher salaries. In addition to actor pay, costs related to the director, producer, and senior creative staff increased as the franchise grew in scale and prestige. These above the line costs required a substantial portion of the overall budget and reflected the students' reliance on recognizable name to maintain audience interest. International filming locations are added to production expenses, shooting crosses multiple countries, increase logistical complexity including travel, accommodation, shipping of equipment, and coordination with local production crews. However, these costs were strategically justified as international setting helped broaden global appeal and enhance the film marketability in overseas territory, which are critical to the franchise financial success. When compared to the Similar action film released in the mid 2010 Fast and Furious 7 aligned with the upper range of blockbuster budget. Its production cost is comparable to other franchise driven action spectacle of the same era, particularly those built around ensemble cast and large scale visual effects. Compared to the earlier film, the budget represents a clear escalation, reflecting both inflation and the studio's growing confidence in the brand's earning potential. Overall, the production budget of Fast and Furious 7 illustrates how modern franchise film balance creative ambition, logistical demand, and commercial strategy. The high cost was not solely driven by spectacle but also by real world production challenges and long term brand consideration. From a neutral analytical standpoint, the film serves as a clear example of how blockbuster budget can expand rapidly when scale, technology, talent, and unexpanded circumstances coverage. Fast and Furious 7 2015 operate primarily within the action genre, but by this stage of the franchise, it has evolved into a hybrid that blends action, crime, and global adventure. Rather than grounding itself in realism, the film fully embraced heightened spectacle, positioning itself as a modern blockbuster designed for large audience and immersive theatrical viewing. Its genre identity is less about street level conflict and more about large scale confrontation, elaborate set pieces, and high energy momentum. The overall mood of the film is intense and driven, shaped by a constant sense of urgency. From its opening moment, the atmosphere signals that this is a high stake experience with danger and movement always close at hand. The movie rarely allows the tension to fully settle, maintaining an undercurrent of pressure that pushes the narrative forward. This approach creates a mood that feels aggressive and forward moving, reinforcing the franchise identity as fast, loud, and unapologetically bold. Pacing play a crucial role in establishing this mood. Fast and Furious 7 maintain a rapid rhythm, moving quickly from one major sequence to the next. Action scenes are structured to escalate rather than repeat, giving the film a sense of progression despite its long run time. Quieter movement exists, but they are brief and purposeful, serving as transition rather than extended pauses. This pacing choice ensures that the film never lingers too long in reflection, instead prioritizing momentum and sustained engagement. Tonally, the film balances two distinct elements: high energy action and emotional seriousness. On one hand, the tone is exaggerated and longer than life, with physical deafening stunt and dramatic confrontation that lean into spectacle. On the other hand, there is a noticeable sincerity in how relationship and loyalty are treated. The film takes its emotional beats seriously even when the action itself stretches believability. This tonal blend allows the movie to function both as escapist entertainment and a story rooted in connection and shared history. Statistically, the film favors clarity and scale over experimentation. The camera work emphasizes wide shots and dynamic movement, allowing the audience to fully absorb the scope of the action. This approach avoids excessive visual confusion and ensures that even complex sequences remain eligible. Editing is sharp and energetic with cuts designed to maintain intensity without disorienting the viewer. The visual style support the film goal of delivering spectacle that feel controlled rather than chaotic. Lighting and color grading also contribute to the film's mood. Many scenes uses strong contrast with darker tone during moments of conflict and brighter, more open visuals during scenes that emphasize unity or trim. The visual language reinforces emotional shift without relying heavily on dialogue. Combined with a powerful musical score, the atmosphere becomes immersive, amplifying both excitement and emotional resonance. Another defining aspect of the film's mood is its sense of finality and reflection, which subtly influences its tone. While the movie remains action driven, there is an underlying sense of closure woven into its presentation. This gives certain moments a weight that goes beyond typical franchise storytelling, adding a layer of seriousness to an otherwise adrenaline focused experience. In terms of stylistic choices, this film commented fully to its blockbuster identity. Practical stunt enhanced by visual effect create a seamless blend of realism and exaggeration. The emphasis on fidelity, speed, and scale reinforces the genre core appeal while maintaining a consistent aesthetic across the film. Overall, the genre and mood of this film are defined by intensity, momentum, and emotional sincerity. It is a film that embraces spectacle without irony, delivering fast paced action while maintaining a grounded emotional tone. This combination of atmosphere, pacing, and style helped the movie stand out not just within its franchise but within the broader landscape of modern action cinema. Before watching this film, audience generally arrive with a very specific set of expectations shaped by the franchise's long history, its culture presence, and its reputation as a high energy action series. By the seventh installment, viewers are not approaching the film as a standalone experience but as part of an ongoing cinematic journey. This context heavily influences what different audience group hope to see, feel, and take away from the movie. From a viewer's demographic perspective, the film primarily target a broad global audience rather than a narrow niche. Core viewers tend to be young adult and adult who have followed the franchise over several years. Many of them grew up watching earlier entries and now return out of loyalty and emotional investment. At the same time, the movie is designed to remain accessible to casual viewer who may not remember every previous film but are drawn in by spectacle, recognizable faces, and the promise of entertainment. This wide demographic range create an expectation that the movie will balance familiarity with accessibility, offering something for both long-time fan and newcomer. Male audience traditionally from a large portion of the film's fan base, specifically those interested in car action and stunt driven cinema. However, by the time of this film, the franchise has expanded its appeal to include a more diverse audience. Viewers who value character relationship, humor, and emotional payoff also expect the film to deliver moments that go beyond pure action. This shift broadens expectation from simple adrenaline to a more rounded entertainment experience. In terms of anticipated theme, audience typically expect strong emphasis on loyalty, family, and unity. These ideas have become defining trait of the franchise, and viewers approach the film assuming they will play a central role. There is also an expectation of personal stakes, where conflict feel meaningful rather than purely mechanical. While viewers do not necessarily look for deep philosophical commentary, they do expect emotional weight to accompany the action, particularly given the franchise established on in later installment. Another anticipated theme is escalation. Fan of the series expect each new film to raise the bar in terms of scale and intensity. By the seventh entry, audience anticipate that the action will be bigger, faster, and more ambitious than before. This expectation shapes how viewers judge the film, as satisfaction often depend on whether it successfully delivers a sense of progression rather than repetition. For genre fans, particularly those who enjoy action blockbuster, expectation are clearly defined. Viewers expect high energy pacing, visually impressive set pieces, and a rhythm that prioritizes excitement over realism. Fans of the genre generally do not demand strict logic or grounded physics. Instead, they look for spectral confidence and consistency in tone. As long as the film fully commits to its exaggerated style, genre fans are often willing to suspend disbelief. At the same time, audience familiar with this film franchise expect a distinct identity that separates it from other action films. This include a blend of humor, commentary, and emotional sincerity that soften the intensity of the action. Viewers anticipate moments of lightness and connection that balance the film more aggressive element, creating a tone that feel inclusive rather than overwhelming. There is also strong expectation surrounding production quality. By this stage in the franchise, audiences assume polished visual control, actions, choreography, and a cinematic presentation suitable for large screen. Anything else than a premium production experience could be perceived as a step backward. As a result, viewer entered the film expecting a technically impressive film that reflected its blockbuster status. Opinion wise, many viewers approach Fast and Furious 7 with the expectation that will function as both entertainment and a statement about the franchise direction. Some fans hope it will honor the past while pushing the series forward, while others simply want a satisfying continuation of a familiar formula. This tension between innovation and tradition shapes pre-viewing expectation and influence how the film is ultimately received. Or overall audience expectation before watching this film are defined by loyalty, anticipation of spectacle, and emotional investment. Viewer expect a film that understands its audience, deliver on established theme, and embrace its genre without hesitation. While arriving as long-time fan or casual viewer, most audience step into the movie prepare for high energy, emotionally charged action experience that reflect the franchise evaluation and global appeal. This film is designed with a clearly defined yet broadly inclusive target audience in mind. By the seventh installment, the audience has established itself as a global action brand rather than a niche series, and this film reflects that ambition. The movie is crafted to appeal to viewers who seek high energy entertainment, emotional engagement, and large scale spectacle, while still remaining accessible to a wide age range and cultural background. From an age group perspective, the primarily target audience consists of young adults and adults, generally ranging from the late teens to the mid 40s. Viewers in this range are most likely to connect with the film blend of intense action, stylized drama, and emotional theme. Teenagers approaching adulthood are drawn to the adrenaline, fast pacing, and bold visual, while older viewers often respond more strongly to the theme of loyalty, family, and long term bond that have developed across the franchise. Although the film is not intended for children due to its violence and intensity, it remains suitable for a general audience comfortable with action heavy content. In terms of interest, the movie is particularly tailored for viewers who enjoy visually driven entertainment rather than dialogue heavy storytelling. Fans of cars, stunt, and stream action sequence from a core part of the audience. However, by this stage in the franchise, interest in automobile alone is no longer the defining factor. The film is fully aimed at viewers who appreciate teamwork driven narrative, charismatic ensemble cast, and emotionally charged moment within a blockbuster framework. Those who enjoy stories about loyalty, unity, and shared purpose are likely to find the movie engaging even if they are not deeply invested in car culture. The film also targets viewers who value spectacle and cinematic scale. Audience who prefer watching movies in theater or on large scale where story design and visual play a major role are specifically well served by the film production style. The emphasis on global scale and massive set piece cater to viewers who enjoy escapism and the feeling of being transported into a heightened larger than life world. Regarding genre preferences, This film is clearly made for action and thriller fans who are comfortable with exaggerated scenarios and stylized realism. Viewers who enjoy high-speed chase, elaborate stunt, and constant momentum are the film primary audience. The movie assumes that its viewers are willing to suspend disbelief and accept spectacle as a core part of the experience. Those who prefer grounded drama, slow pacing, or a realism focused storytelling may find the film less appealing as it prioritizes excitement over subtitling. At the same time, the movie is crafted for franchise loyalistic long-time fans who have followed the film series from its earlier entries are the crucial part of the target audience. The film is structured in a way that rewards familiarity with recurring character and themes, creating a sense of continuity and emotional payoff. These viewers are likely to appreciate the film not just as an isolated action movie but as a continuation of an ongoing narrative built over several films. The film also appealed to casual viewers who may not have deep knowledge of the franchise but enjoy mainstream action cinema. Clear character dynamics, straightforward emotional cues, and a focus on visual storytelling make it accessible even to those who are new to the series. This dual approach, serving both dedicated fan and newcomer, reflect the studio's intention to maximize global reach. Culturally, the target audience extends beyond a single region. The movie is designed for international viewers, incorporating diverse setting and universally recognizable theme. This global orientation make it appealing to audience across different countries and backgrounds, particularly those who enjoy Hollywood action films with a strong sense of scale and energy. Overall, this film is made for viewers who seek thrilling, emotionally charged entertainment rather than nuanced realism. Its target audience include young adult and adult who enjoy action-driven genres, appreciate spectacle, and value themes of loyalty and unity. Whether watched by long-time fan or first-time viewers, the film is tailored to satisfy those who come to the cinema looking for excitement, connection, and a larger than life experience. The film promises an emotional experience that goes beyond the typical expectation of an action blockbuster. While the film is built on speed, spectacle, and intensity, its emotional core is carefully shaped to leave a lasting impression on the viewer. The movie does not aim to provoke subtitle ambiguous feeling. Instead, it delivers emotion that are direct, powerful, and designed to resonate with a wide audience. In terms of mood, the film maintains a constant sense of urgency and intensity for much of its runtime. Viewers can expect to feel energized and alert, pulled forward by fast pacing and high stakes situations. The atmosphere is charged, creating excitement that rarely fades. This heightened mood fee keeps audience emotionally engaged, ensuring that the film feels dynamic rather than passive. At the same time, the movie strategically allow moment of calm, giving viewers brief emotional breathing space before the intensity rises again. This shift prevents emotional fatigue and make the high energy sequence feel more impactful. Alongside this intensity, there is a suitable undercurrent of seriousness that shape the film emotional tone. Even during its most exaggerated moment, the movie treats its core relationship with sincerity. This seriousness grounds the spectacle and encourages viewer to emotionally invest rather than simply observe. As a result, the mood feels purposeful rather than chaotic, guiding the audience through excitement, tension, and reflection. The theme of the film plays a central role in shaping its emotional experience, loyalty, unity, and the idea of chosen family form the emotional backbone of the story. The film repeatedly reinforced the notion that strength comes from connection, not individuality. These emphasis encouraging viewer to feel a sense of belonging and shared purpose, particularly for those who have followed the franchise over time. The emotional weight of these themes is not subtitle, but it is consistent, making the film feel cohesive and intentional. Another important theme is sacrifice. The movie presents the idea that meaningful bonds require commitment and at the times difficult choices. This theme introduces a layer of emotional gravity that contrasts with the otherwise exhilarating tone. Viewers are invited to reflect on what it means to stand by others even when the cost is high. This balance between action and reflection deepens the emotional experience and gives the film a sense of maturity compared to the earlier entries in the franchise. The intended impact of this emotional element is to create a sense of catharsis. The film aimed to not only by its spectacle but also by emotional resolution. It seeks to evolve feeling of triumph, respect and appreciation for the relationship at its center. Rather than ending on pure adrenaline, the movie guides audience toward a more reflective emotional state, encouraging them to think about connection, loyalty and legacy. For a long time when the emotional experience is likely to be particularly strong, familiarity with the strong and their shared history amplify the emotional payoff, transforming certain moments into powerful reflection on growth and continuity. For newer viewers, the film still offer accessible emotional cues using clear visual language and music to communicate feeling without requiring deep prior language. The film also promises a sense of emotional collage. Even while leaving room for the franchise to continue, it delivers moments that feel conclusive and meaningful. This sense of clear provide emotional relief, allowing viewer to process the intensity of the experience in a calm, reflective way. It is this combination of excitement and emotional release that distinguish the film from any action-driven counterpart. Overall, this film promises an emotional journey defined by intensity, sincerity, and reflection. Its mood keeps viewer energized, its theme encourages emotional connection, and its intended impact is to leave audience feeling both exhilarated and emotionally fulfilled. The film positions itself not just as entertainment but as an experience that blends adrenaline with heartfelt emotion, ensuring that viewers walk away with a sense of lasting resonance rather than momentary excitement alone. At its core, this film is built around an idea that goes far beyond speed, conflict, or spectacle. The movie's central concept is the power of chosen bond in a world defined by constant motion and danger. Rather than focusing on individual heroism, the story presents collective strength as the true source of resilience. In abstract terms, the film explores how unity becomes an anchor when everything else is unstable and how shared purpose can transform choice into direction. One of the dominant themes shaping the core ideas connection. The story suggests that relationships formed through the trust and shared experience can be stronger than those defined by blood alone. This idea of found family operates as an emotional framework, giving meaning to the character, action, and choices. In a fast moving, unpredictable world, these bonds act as a stabilizing force, reminding the audience that identity is often shaped by who we stand beside rather than where we come from. Another key theme is loyalty as an active choice. The film treats loyalty not as a passive feeling but as something repeatedly proven through action. The story concept emphasizes that commitment requires presence, risk, and consistency. Loyalty in this abstract sense becomes a moral compass. It guides behavior even when the external world is hostile or morally ambiguous. Through this lens, the narrative frames loyalty as a form of resistance against isolation and fragmentation. The message of the film also center on legacy. The story reflect on what it means to leave something meaningful behind, specifically in a life defined by danger and impermanence. Legacy is not portrayed as fame or victory, but as influence how action echo through other and shape collective memory. The film abstract storytelling position legacy as something built through shared movement and mutual respect rather than individual achievement. Movement itself function as a symbolic element within the story concept. Speed, travel, and constant change represent both freedom and instability. The character exists in a state of perpetual motion, suggesting a world where stillness is rare and safety is temporary. Within this environment, emotional grounding becomes essential. The core idea implies that without connection, motion becomes meaningless. With connection, however, movement turns into a journey rather than an escape. Conflict in the story is framed less as a battle between individuals and more as a collision of value. On one side is the pursuit of control through domination and revenge. On the other hand is the pursuit of strength through unity and trust. This contrast reinforces the film's broader message that power gained through isolation is ultimately fragile, while power built through cooperation is enduring. The narrative does not simply present conflict as something to overcome but as a test of belief system. Sacrifice emerges as another essential theme tied to the film's core idea. The story suggests that meaningful bonds require willingness to place the collective above the self. Sacrifice is portrayed not as loss but as an affirmation of sheer purpose. In abstract terms, the sacrifice becomes a language through which values are expressed. It signals what truly matters when circumstances demand difficult choices. The story concept also engaged with the idea of collier. While the word of the film remain open-ended and ongoing, there is strong emphasis on honoring what has been built so far. Collier is presenting not as an ending but as acknowledgement. This allows the narrative to pause and reflect, giving way to past experience without freezing progress. In this sense, the film explores how moving forward requires recognition of what has already shaped us. Another subtitle message embedded in the core idea is the balance between control and acceptance. The story acknowledges that not everything can be managed or predicted, no matter how skilled or prepared one becomes. Instead of offering dominance as a solution, the narrative encourages adaptability and trust in others. This perspective frames vulnerability not as weakness but as a necessary condition for genuine connection. Ultimately, the core idea of this film can be understood as a meditation on unity in motion. The film progresses that in a world defined by speed, risk, and constant change, meaning is found not in how fast we move but in who moves with us. It themes, messages, and story concept coverage around the belief that shared purpose creates stability, loyalty create identity, and legacy is built through connection. This abstract foundation gives the film emotional weight beneath its spectacle, allowing it to resonate as more than just an action driven narrative. The central conflict of this film is best understood not as a single confrontation but as a sustained tension between opposing value systems. Rather than focusing on specific event or action, the conflict operates on an abstract level, shaping the emotional and moral direction of the story. At its heart, the film explores how individuals and groups respond to threat, loss, and pressure, and what those responses reveal about their belief. One of the core moral dilemmas driving the conflict is the choice between isolation and unity. The story presents a world in which danger encourages separation, self preservation, and emotional withdrawal. In contrast, the protagonist operate under the belief that strength is collective. This creates an ongoing dilemma whether to face diversity along relying slowly on emotional skill and control, or to accept vulnerability by depending on others. The tension between these two approaches fuel much of the story's emotional weight. Another moral dimension of the conflict involves justice versus vagueness. The narrative frame retaliation as a tempting but destructive path, offering immediate emotional satisfaction at the cost of long term stability. Opposing this is a more restrained idea of justice rooted in protection and responsibility rather than personal retribution. The central conflict asks whether responding to harm with equal harm truly restore balance or whether it perpetuates an endless cycle of escalation. This dilemma creates ethical tension that persists throughout the cycle film, influencing decision even when emotion runs high. The challenges faced by the character are not limited to external opposition. Internal conflict plays a significant role in shaping the story's direction. Characters are challenged to reconcile their personal emotion with their responsibilities to others. Fear, anger, and grief exist alongside loyalty and commitment, forcing constant negotiation between impulse and principle. This internal struggle adds depth to the central conflict, making it as much psychological and physical. Truth is another key challenge embedded in the conflict. The story repeatedly tests whether trust can survive under extreme pressure. In an environment defined by uncertainty and risk, trust becomes both essential and fragile. Choosing to trust others means surrendering a degree of control which introduces vulnerability. The central conflict explores whether this vulnerability is a liability or a necessary foundation for meaningful cooperation. The tension also rises from the clash between preeminence and impreeminence. The characters operate in a world where stability is rare and loss is always possible. This creates a persistent emotional state. How to build something lasting in conditions and loss is always possible. This creates a persistent emotional state. How to build something lasting in conditions that constantly threaten to dismantle it. The conflict asks whether it is possible to preserve identity and connection when the considering world demand constant adaptation. Power dynamic further intensify the conflict. One side views power as domination, control, and enforcement of will. The other views power as coordination, mutual respect, and shared responsibility. This philosophical divide transforms the conflict into more than a struggle for victory. It becomes a debate about what kind of strength is sustainable. The tension between these interpretations of power shape the story's moral landscape. Another layer of the central conflict involves acceptance over resistance. The narrative acknowledges that some losses and change can't be undone. The challenges lie in deciding when to fight against circumstances and when to adopt to them. This creates emotional tension as a resistance can preserve identity but also lead to exhaustion, while acceptance can bring peace but feel like surrender. The film does not offer easy answer, instead allowing this dilemma to exist as a central source of conflict. The emotional stake of the story are heightened by the theme of responsibility. Characters are not only accountable for their own choice but also for the impact of those choices on others. This shared responsibility intensify the tension as mistakes carry consequences beyond the individual. The conflict thus becomes collective rather than personal, reinforces the film's emphasis on interconnectedness. Ultimately, the central conflict of this film revolves around how people define strength when confronted with loss and danger. Through moral dilemmas, ongoing challenges, and sustained tension, the story examines whether unity can endure under pressure and whether values can remain intact in the face of chaos. By framing conflict as a test of belief rather than a consequence of event, the film transforms its struggle into a reflection on loyalty, resilience, and the cost of standing together in an unstable world. The movie explores a range of themes that elevate it beyond a conventional action spectacle. While the film operates within a high energy, exaggerated framework, its thematic core is grounded in ethical reflection, emotional development, and cultural resonance. These themes work together to give the movie lasting impact, shaping how audience connect with its story on both personal and collective level. One of the most prominent themes is loyalty as an ethical principle rather than a consequence. The film presents loyalty as a conscious moral choice that requires effort, risk, and consistency. This raises an important ethical question: is loyalty on unconditionally or must it be continually earned? The narrative leans toward the idea that loyalty is sustained through action, not words, and that remaining loyal often demands sacrifice. This perspective frames loyalty as a responsibility rather than a sentiment, adding moral weight to the character's decision. Closely tied to loyalty is the theme of chosen family. The movie challenges traditional definition of family by emphasizing bond formed through shared experience rather than bloodline. These themes speak to modern social realities where identity and belongings are increasingly shaped by personal connection. The emotional arc connected to this theme moves from individual survival toward collective care, reinforcing the idea that emotional security is built through trust and mutual support. Another significant theme is grief and resilience. The theme acknowledges loss without allowing it to paralyze forward movement. Instead, grief becomes a catalyst for reflection and growth. The emotional journey associated within this theme explore how individual process loss differently, yet remain connected through sheer memory. This raises ethical consideration about how people honor the past while continue to move forward. The film suggests that remembrance and progress are not opposing force but complementary ones. Sacrifice is also a central theme, framed as an expression of value rather than obligation. The movie examines that individuals are willing to give up for the sake of others, highlighting sacrifice as an act that affirms meaning. This introduces ethical tension around self preservation versus collective well being. The emotional arc tend to sacrifice is one of maturation as character learn that personal safety or comfort may sometimes be secondary to shared responsibility. The theme of power and control add another layer of ethical complexity. The film contrasts power rooted in domination with power grounded in cooperation. This raises question about the legitimacy of force and the consequence of using power without restraint. Through this contrast, the movie critiques the idea that strength is measured solely by dominance, instead proposing that sustainable power comes from unity and respect. Culturally, the film reflects theme of globalization and interconnectedness. The story exists in a world without clear borders, where action ripples across different environments and communities. This mirrors contemporary culture realities in which events are rarely isolated. The movie uses this global backdrop to explore cultural diversity as a strength, suggesting that collaboration across different lead to resilience rather than fragmentation. Another theme involves identity and continuity. The film explores how people maintain a sense of self in environment defined by constant change. This theme resonates emotionally with audience who experience similar pressure in fast-paced modern life. The emotional arc here centers on stability, finding something enduring in a world that rarely slows down. The film presents relationship as the anchor that allow identity to persist despite external instability. Responsibility is also deeply embedded in the narrative. Characters are not portrayed as isolated agents but as individuals whose choice affected them. This introduces ethical questions about accountability and leadership. The movie suggests that true leadership involves protecting others and accepting the consequence of one's decision. The emotional journey associated with responsibility is one of growth as character shift from reactive behavior to the deliberate action. Finally, the theme of legacy ties together the film ethical, emotional, and cultural dimension. Legacy is portrayed not as material success or public recognition but as influence on others. The film invites viewers to consider what remains after action has passed, memories, relationship, and shared value. This theme encourages reflection on how lives are measured, offer a quietly philosophical conclusion beneath the spectre. Overall, the theme explored in this film address ethical questions about loyalty, power, and responsibility, trace emotions arc shaped by grief and connection, and engage with cultural topics such as globalization and chosen family. These layered themes give the film emotional depth, allowing it to resonate with the audience long after the action has ended. The emotional connection in Fast and Furious 7 is built through a careful blend of mood, recurring action spectacle. Its lasting impact comes from and how it invites viewers to emotionally participate rather than simply observe. The story is structured to make audience feel included in its emotional rhythm, creating a sense of shared journey rather than distance. Entertainment, the mood of the film play a major role in shaping this connection. For much of its runtime, the atmosphere is intense and forward moving, generating excitement and tension that keep viewers emotionally alert. This constant momentum mirrors the emotional state of the character, pulling the audience into a shared sense of urgency. At the same time, the film carefully balances this intensity with moment of calm and reflection. This quieter emotional space allows viewer to process what they are feeling, preventing the experience from becoming overwhelming. The alternation between high energy and emotional stillness create a dynamic rhythm that keep viewers engaged on both a physical and emotional level. Beyond intensity, the mood also carries a sense of sincerity. Even when the action becomes exaggerated, the emotional tone remain earnest. The film does not treat its emotional beats with irony or detachment. Instead, it presents feeling directly and confidently, signaling to viewers that emotional investment is not only allowed but encouraged. This sincerity lowers emotional barriers, making it easier for audience to connect with the story on a personal level. The theme explored in the film deepens this emotional bond. One of the most powerful is the theme of belonging. The story repeatedly reinforces the idea that connection and unity provide meaning in an unstable world. This theme resonates strongly with viewers because it reflects a universal desire to feel supported and understood. By emphasizing shared identity over individual achievement, the film invites audience to see themselves within the collective rather than as isolated spectators. Loyalty is another theme that strengthens emotional connection. The story frames loyalty as something enduring and intentional, which creates emotional reassurance for viewers. In a world often defined by change and uncertainty, the film portrayal of unwavering commitment offer confront. This emotional consistency allowing viewer to trust the story, knowing that relationship matter and will be honored throughout the experience. Grief and acceptance also play a subtitle but important role in connecting with viewers emotionally. The film acknowledges loss without sensationalizing, allowing emotion to exist naturally within the narrative. This approach mirrors real life emotional processing where grief and resilience coexist. Viewers are not pushed toward a single emotional response, instead, they are given space to reflect, remember, and move forward alongside the story. This shared emotional pacing strengthening the bond between audience and narrative. The viewer experience is designed to be immersive rather than analytical. The film relies heavily on visual storytelling, music, and tone to communicate emotion, making the experience accessible regardless of background or prior knowledge. This inclusivity ensures that viewers from different culture and experience can connect emotionally without needing detailed context. The emotional cues are clear and universal, guiding audience through excitement, tension, warmth, and reflection. Another key aspect of the viewer experience is a sense of continuity. For long time follower, emotional connection is strengthened through familiarity and accumulated history. Each emotional moment carries additional weight because it built on what viewers already know and feel. For newer audience, the film still provides clear emotional anchors, ensuring that the experience remains meaningful even without prior attachment. This layer emotional design allows different viewers to connect in different ways, increasing the film's overall emotional reach. The story also fosters emotional connection by emphasizing shared experience over individual triumph. Rather than positioning the audience to admire a single figure, the film encourages viewers to emotionally align with the group. This collective focus creates a sense of inclusion, as if the audience is emotionally traveling alongside the character. This approach reduces emotional distance and increases empathy, making the story feel personal rather than performative. Music and pacing further enhance emotional engagement. The soundtrack is used not just to heighten excitement but to signal emotional shift, guiding viewer toward reflection when needed. Combined with deliberate pacing, this create emotional clarity, ensuring that viewer understand not just what is happening but how they are meant to feel. Ultimately, this film connects emotionally with viewer by creating an experience that feels shared, senior, and emotionally guided. Through its balanced mood, universal theme, and immersive presentation, the film invites audience to feel excitement, warmth, and reflection in equal measure, rather than leaving viewers with only the memory of spectacle. It offers an emotional journey that lingers, rooted in connection, loyalty, and the reassurance that sheer bond endure even in the fastest moving world. The character in this film function less as individually complex figure and more as symbolic representation of values that define the franchise. But this characterization is not about transformation but about reinforcement. Each character embodies a specific role within a collective identity, allowing the film to prioritize emotional continuity and thematic clarity over deep psychological exploration. Dominic Toretto serves as the moral and emotional center of the film. As the character, Dom represents the protector archetype defined by authority, restraint, and unwavering loyalty. His personality is built around control, emotional, physical, and ethical. He speaks less than others, but his presence carries weight, positioning him as a stabilizing force within the group. For a reviewer perspective, Dom's strength lies in consistency. He does not change dramatically but instead anchor the story's value, reinforcing theme of family responsibility and leadership through quiet confidence rather than overt emotion. Barry O'Connor occupies the role of the emotional bridge Within the group, his archetype blends the loyal partner with the humanizing presence, balancing intensity with warmth, brain personality trait including empathy, adaptability, and emotional openness, making him one of the most relatable figures for viewers. He often reflects the tension between personal obligation and collective duty, which give his character as an underlying emotional complexity. Critically, Barrigan's function as the heart of the ensemble, grounding the film heightened action is a sense of normalcy and sincerity. Lati Ortiz represents resilience and emotional strength. Her character archetype is a survivor, someone shaped by hardship but defined by endurance rather than vulnerability. Lati's personality trait including independence, determination, and emotional restraint. She is portrayed as equal within the group, neither secondary nor symbolic, which reinforces the franchise evolving approach to female character. From a reviewer standpoint, Letty's presence adds emotional gravity without melodrama, reinforcing theme of identity and continuity through quiet resolve. Lucky hopes embody the enforcer archetype defined by physical dominance and moral clarity. His personality traits include confidence, directness, and a strong sense of justice. Hobbes functions as a force of momentum within the story, pushing situation forward through action rather than reflection. While his characterization leans toward exaggeration, this stylization aligns with the film's broader tone. Critically, Hobbes add intensity and specter while still remaining aligned with the group ethical framework, preventing his character from feeling disconnected or purely aggressive. Deckard Shaw operates as a narrative counterbalance to the ensemble. As an antagonist figure, he represents isolation, vagueness, and emotional detachment. His archetype is rooted in singular focus and personal code, contrasting sharply with the group oriented philosophy of the protagonist. Sean's personality traits include discipline, precision, and emotional coldness. From the analytical perspective, her character is intentionally narrow, designed to embody opposition rather than complexity. This clarity strengthens the film thematic conflict between unity and individualism. Sporting characters such as Roman Pires and Taj Parker function as Donald moderator. Rome represent humor and emotional release, using bravado and sarcasm to diffuse tension. His personality trait includes insecurity masked by confidence, making him both comedic and human. Taj, on the other hand, serves as the intellectual stabilizer, characterized by logic, composure, and adaptability. Together, they balance the film's seriousness with acceptability, preventing the narrative from becoming emotionally rigid. From a viewer standpoint, the strength of this film lies not in character evolution but in character alignment. Each figure clearly understands their role within the group dynamic, and the film reinforces these roles consistently. This clarity allows audience to emotionally invest without confusion, creating a sense of familiarity and trust. Overall, the characters in this film are best suited as emotional and thematic instrument rather than fully independent study. Their defined archetype, reinforced personality trait, and collective focus serve the film core idea of unity and loyalty. When subtlety is limited, the characters succeed in delivering emotional resonance, which remain one of the franchise defining strengths. The acting performance in this film are driven less by traditional dramatic range and more by emotional presence, chemistry, and symbolic weight. As a reviewer, it becomes clear that the performances are designed to support the film emotional experience rather than redefine acting craft. The cast understands the tone of the franchise and deliver performances that align with its heightened style while still maintaining sincerity. Among the lead actors, Vin Diesel anchored the film with a performance built on restraint and control. His portrayal of Dominic Toretto relies heavily on physical stillness, minimal dialogue, and a grounded emotional posture. Rather than expressing emotion deeply, Denzel communicates feeling through pauses, body language, and presence. This approach reinforced Dom's role as the emotional pillar of the group from an emotional standpoint. His performance create a sense of stability, making viewers feel that no matter how chaotic the situation becomes, there is a calm center holding everything together. Paul Walker's performance created distinct emotional resonance that extend beyond the screen. His portrayal of Barry and O'Connor emphasized warmth, openness, and human vulnerability. Walker brings a natural sincerity that contrasts with the film's exaggerated action or grounding the experience in emotional realism. His performance feels gentle and reflective, offering emotional accessibility that invites viewers to connect on a personal level. As a reviewer, it is difficult to separate the performance from its broader emotional context, but this added weight enhanced the film's impact rather than distracting from it. In a leading role, Michael Rodriguez delivered a performance defined by emotional restraint and physical confidence. As Letty, she communicates strength without theatricality, relying on subtitle expression and controlled sincerity. Rodriguez's acting reinforces Letty's resilience and independence, contributing to the film's theme of endurance. Emotionally, her performance adds seriousness and depth, balancing the more expressive performance around her. The supporting cast play a critical role in shaping the film emotional rhythm. Davian Johnson bring a commanding physical presence and charismatic energy as Lucas Hope. His performance leaned into exaggeration, but it remained emotionally consistent with the film's tone. Johnson's confidence and humor create a sense of momentum and reassurance, making his character feel both formidable and approachable. Jensen's Thantham as Deckard Shaw deliver a controlled and focused performance that emphasizes emotional detachment. His acting style is precise and restrained, creating a sharp contrast with the ensemble warmth. This emotional distance enhances the film's central tension as Shaw's presence feel isolating and disruptive by design. Tyson Gibson and Ludacris provide emotional balance through humor and familiarity. Gibson's performance as Ludacris has thought of a calm intelligence and emotional steadiness, grounding the group during high intensity moments. Together, they ensure that the film emotional tone remain dynamic rather than monotonous. The chemistry among the cast is one of the film's strongest emotional ascents. Years of shared screen time translate into believable connection, making relationship feel live and rather than constructed. The interaction feel natural and effortless, allowing emotional beat to land without forced exposition. The chemistry is especially evident in quieter moments where simple gesture and shared looks carry emotional weight. Emotionally, the performance in this film succeed because they align with the film's core theme of loyalty, family, and connection. The actors are not competing for attention, instead, they contribute to a shared emotional atmosphere. This collective approach allows the film to resonate deeply with viewers, making the acting feel purposeful rather than performative. Overall, the acting performance may not aim for traditional award recognition, but they be something equally important emotionally credibility, credibility through strong lead performance, effective supporting roles, and undeniable chemistry. This film delivers an emotionally engaging experience that stays with the audience long after the film aim for realism in a traditional grounded sense. Instead, it operates with a heightened cinematic reality where spectacle and emotion take precedence over plausibility. From a reviewer perspective, the film's success depends not on how realistic its events are, but on how emotionally believable its characters feel. within that exaggerated world. In terms of character development, the movie favors reinforcement over transformation. By the seventh installment, the main characters are already well established, and the film assumes audience familiarity within their personalities and value. Rather than introducing significant internal change, the story focuses on deepening existing traits. Characters are placed under pressure that test their loyalty, resolve, and emotional endurance, allowing viewers to see how these traits hold up rather than how they evolve. This approach limits traditional character arc but strengthens emotional continuity, which is central to franchise identity. Dominic Toretto, for example, does not undergo dramatic personal change, but his consistency becomes a form of development. His unwavering commitment to family and responsibility is repeatedly reinforced, making his character feel dependable and grounded. Barry O'Connor development is more emotionally oriented, emphasizing reflection and personal balance rather than action driven growth. This subtitle form of development prioritizes emotional resolution over narrative progression, aligning with the film's broader theme. Regarding believability, the film draws a clear distinction between physical realism and emotional realism. The physical action, stunt, and scenarios are intentionally exaggerated, often defying real world logic. However, the emotional reaction to these situations are presented with sincerity. The character respond to loss, danger, and connection in ways that feel genuine, even when the circumstances themselves are implausible. This emotional intense honesty allows viewer to suspend belief and remain invested in the story. Believability is further reinforced through consistent character behavior. Each character reacts in ways that align with their established personality trait, creating a sense of internal logic even when the world around them feel unreal. The characters themselves do not contradict who they are. This consistency is crucial in maintaining viewer trust, as it ensures that emotional response feel earned rather than forced. The film emotional range is another area where depth emerges. While the dominant emotions are in intensity and determination, the movie allows rooms for vulnerability, humor, and reflection. Moments of quiet emotion are strategically placed, providing contrast to the relentless action. These shifts in tone help humanize the character, reminding viewer that beneath the spectre are individuals with emotional limits and attachment. However, the emotional range is deliberately streamlined. The film avoids ambiguity or morally complex intersection, opting instead for clear emotional signal. This clarity make the movie accessible to a broad audience but limits psychological depth. Character express emotion in direct, recognizable way, ensuring that viewers understand how they are meant to feel at any given moment. From a critical standpoint, this approach to realism and depth reflect a conscious stylistic choice. This prioritizes emotional immediacy over nosed realism. It seeks to create a shared emotional experience rather than an intellectually challenging character study. As a result, the character feel emotionally authentic within the film, heightened reality, even when they lack the complexity found in more grounded dramas. The ensemble dynamic also contribute to perceived depth. Rather than exploring each character in isolation, the film emphasizes relationship and group identity. Emotional depth emerges through interaction rather than introspection. The audience learn who these characters are by how they support, protect, and respond to one another, reinforcing the franchise emphasis on collective strength. In conclusion, this film achieves realism and depth through emotional credibility rather than factual accuracy. Its character development is subtitle and reinforcing, Its believability is rooted in consistent emotional behavior, and its emotional range is focused but effective. While it may not satisfy viewers seeking realism in the conventional sense, it succeeds in creating characters who feel emotionally real with a larger than life world, which is ultimately the film's primary goal. The production budget of this film reflects the scale, ambition, and complexity expected from a mature global franchise. By the seventh installment, this film had fully transitioned into the upper tier of blockbuster cinema, and the financial planning behind this film demonstrated a steady studio strategy focused on spectacle, international appeal, and long-term brand value rather than cost containment. In terms of cost ranges, the movie production budget is commonly estimated to fall between 190 million and 250 million dollars. This range places the film among the more expensive action production of its time. The variation is reported figures largely stem from unique production circumstances that extended the filming schedule and increased post-production demand. These factors caused the budget to rise beyond what might normally be expected for a sequel, even one in a successful franchise. From an analytical standpoint, the higher costs reflect not inefficiency but adaptation to extraordinary logistical and creative challenges. Looking at resource allocation, a significant portion of the budget was directed toward action design and execution. The film is heavily reliant on large scale stunts, specialized vehicle, and coordinated action choreography. These elements require extensive planning, safety measures, and skilled personnel. Unlike smaller action films that rely heavily on quick editing or confined location, this film invests in physically expensive sequences that demand higher upfront spending. Visual effects represent another major area of budget allocation. While the franchise traditionally emphasized practical stunts, this installment requires a greater reliance on advanced digital effects. Visual effects were used only not to enhance the action but also to ensure visual continuity and polish across complex sequences. High-end CGI work, composing, and digital enhancement significantly increased post-production cost. This investment was essential to maintain a seamless cinematic experience that matched audience expectation for a modern blockbuster. Talent compensation also accounted for a notable share of the budget. By the seventh film, the main cast had become closely associated with the franchise success, giving them strong negotiating leverage. Lead actors, supporting ensemble members, and key creative personnel commanded higher salaries than in earlier installments. From a studio perspective, these costs were justified by the actors' established box office draw and their role in maintaining franchise continuity. International filming location further increased expenses. Shooting across multiple regions required transportation of equipment, accommodation for cast and crew, local production team, and compliance with regional regulation. However, these costs align with the franchise global marketing strategy. International setting enhanced worldwide appeal, making the film more attractive to overseas audiences, which are crucial to its financial performance. When comparing this film to similar film released in the mid 2010, its budget fits squarely within the range of major franchise action driven film. It is comparable in cost to large ensemble action projects such as superhero sequel and spy franchise of the same era. Compared to the earlier Fast and Furious entries, the budget represents a clear escalation, reflecting both inflection and the franchise shift toward larger scale storytelling. From an analytical viewpoint, The production budget of this movie illustrates how modern blockbuster economic function. High costs are not simply about spectacle but about managing risk, maintaining brand identity, and meeting global audience expectation. The film's budget demonstrates a strategic investment in scale, talent, and technical execution, positioning it as a premium cinematic product rather than a conventional sequel. The domestic box office performance of this film stands as one of the most important indicators of the film's cultural impact within the United States and Canada. While the franchise had already proven its strength internationally, this installment marked a key peak moment where domestic audience respond with exceptional enthusiasm, elevating the film beyond expectation for a seventh entry in a long-running series. In the North America region, the movie earned around $350 million during its theatrical run. This figure positioned it as the highest domestic grosser in Fast and Furious franchise at the time of its release. From a contextual standpoint, this achievement is significant because action and franchise often see diminishing returning in later installment. Instead, the movie reversed that pattern, showing growth rather than fatigue in the domestic market. One of the clearest indicators of audience demand was the film opening performance. The movie debuted with a exceptionally strong opening weekend, drawing massive crowd across urban and rural market. This suggests that anticipation was not limited to core fan but extended to casual moviegoer as well. Domestic audience treated the release as a major cinematic event comparable to superhero or long-established adventure franchise. The audience trend help explain why the film performed so well domestically. By this time, Fast and Furious series had expanded its appeal from fear beyond care. Car enthusiastic younger viewers were drawn in by high energy action and spectacle, while older viewers connected with the theme of loyalty, family, and legacy. The diverse casting and emphasis on group dynamic also resonated strongly with the multicultural audience in the United States, contributed to repeat viewers and strong word of mouth. Another important factor in the domestic box office story is emotional engagement. For many viewers, the film carried an added emotional weight that went beyond standard franchise entertainment. That emotional context encouragement audience who might not normally prioritize an action sequel to attending theater, reinforcing the film board demographic reach. As a result, the domestic earnings reflect not just entertainment value but a sheer audience experience. When placed alongside other major releases of the same year, this film held its ground remarkably well. It competed in a crowded marketplace filled with high-profile franchise films, yet still ranked among the top domestic earner of the year. This comparison highlights how firmly the franchise had embedded itself in mainstream American cinema rather than being overshadowed by viewers' brand. It stood confidently alongside them. Comparing this installment to earlier films in the series further emphasizes domestic success. Previous entries typically earn significantly less within North America and rely more heavily on overseas market. The sharp increase in domestic revenue with Fast and Furious 7 demonstrated a shift in how US audience perceived the franchise. It was no longer seen as a niche or purely international friendly action series but as a core blockbuster brand with a strong home market appeal. The domestic box office trajectory also show staying power. Instead of dropping sharply after its debut, it maintained steady earning across multiple weeks. These patterns indicate positive audience reception and sustained interest, suggesting that viewers recommend the film to other and in some cases return for repeat screen. Overall, the domestic box office performance of this film reflect a moment when franchise loyalty, emotional resonance, and broad audience appeal converge. Its success in the United States and Canada reinforces the series' status as a dominant force in modern action cinema and proven that even a long-running franchise could still surprise the domestic market with record-setting result. The international box office performance of this film represents one of the most striking examples of the global audience engagement in modern blockbuster cinema. While the film performed strongly in North America, its true financial power emerged overseas, where international market elevated it from a major hit to a worldwide phenomenon. Outside the United States and Canada, the movie earned well over $1 billion, accounting for the clear majority of its total theatrical revenue. This imbalance between domestic and international earnings highlight how Fast and Furious franchise had evolved into a globally oriented brand. By the time of its seventh installment, the series was no longer driven primarily by American audience but by a broad international fan base that consistently turned out in large number. From a regional perspective, Asia played a crucial role in the film's international success. Markets such as China deliver exceptionally high return, placing the film among the top foreign release in that territory at the time. The reception in this region reflected a strong appetite for large-scale action film with an ensemble cast and visually driven storytelling. The emphasis on spectral speed and teamwork translated easily across language and cultural boundaries, making the film highly accessible to non-English speaking audience. European market also contributed substantially to the international total. Countries across Western and Eastern Europe show strong attendance, particularly in urban centers where blockbuster cinema has a consistent following. In these regions, the franchise benefited from long-term familiarity. Earlier Fast and Furious film had already established a loyal audience, and the seventh entry capitalized on that goodwill. The film polished production values and recognizable character helped maintain momentum across multiple European territories. Latin America represented another important international market. The franchise has historically performed well in this region, and this film continued that trend. The theme of loyalty, family, and group identity resonated strongly with the audience even without reliance on detailed narrative comparison. High energy, action, and emotional tone play a larger role than dialogue, spotting repeat viewing, and strong word of mouth. Market reception across international territories were largely enthusiastic, with many regions reporting extended theatrical run and sustained attendance beyond opening weekend. This suggests that the film was not only anticipated but also positively received by general audience. Unlike many Hollywood releases that rely on early hype before fading equally, the film demonstrated staying power in overseas market, reinforcing its position as a must-see cinematic. Marketing impact was a key driver of it. This international performance. The promotional safety emphasized global appeal rather than a single regional identity. Trailers, posters, and advertising campaigns focus on universal elements such as action scale, emotional intensity, and the strength of the ensemble cast. This approach allowed the marketing to translate effectively across different cultures without heavy localization. Another important aspect of the marketing impact was timing and coordination. The film release schedule was carefully planned to maximize momentum across regions, ensuring that international boost supported continued interest worldwide. Social media and international press coverage amplify audience excitement, making the film feel like a shared global experience rather than a region specific release. Comparatively, when placed alongside other major international blockbusters of its era, this film stands out for how heavily it relies on overseas markets. Many Hollywood films aim for balanced domestic and international earnings, but this film success demonstrated the financial power of prioritizing global audience. It is also influenced future studio strategies, encouraging greater investment in franchise designed to travel well internationally. The international box office of this film illustrates how the franchise achieved its greatest strength outside North America through strong regional reception, effective global marketing, and broad culture acceptability. The film became one of the highest grossing international releases of its time, solidifying the film series as a truly global cinematic brand. The international box office performance of this film represent one of the most striking examples of global audience engagement in modern blockbuster cinema. While the film performed strongly in North America, its true financial power emerged overseas, where international market elevated it from a major hit to a worldwide phenomenon. From a regional perspective, Asia play a crucial role in the film's international success. Markets such as China deliver exceptionally high return, placing the film among the top foreign release in that territory. At the time, the reception in this region reflected a strong appetite for large-scale action film with an ensemble cast and visually driven storytelling. The emphasis on spectacle, speed, and teamwork translated easily across language and cultural boundaries, making the film highly accessible to non-English speaking audience. European market also contributed substantially to the international total. Countries across Western and Eastern Europe show strong audience, particularly in urban centers where blockbuster cinema has a consistent following. In these regions, the franchise benefited from long-term familiarity. Earlier, this film had already established a loyal audience, and the seventh entry capitalized on that goodwill. The film polished production values and recognizable character helped maintain momentum across multiple European territory. Latin America represented another important international market. The franchise has historically performed well in this region, and this film continued that trend. The theme of loyalty, family, and group identity resonated strongly with audience even without reliance on detailed narrative comparison. High energy action and emotional talk play a larger role than dialogue, supporting repeat viewing a strong word of mouth. Market reception across international territories was largely enthusiastic, with many regions reporting extending theatrical runs and sustained attendance beyond opening weekend. This suggests that the film was not only anticipated but also positively received by general audience. Unlike many Hollywood releases that rely on early hype before fading equally, this film demonstrated staying power in overseas market, reinforcing its position as a must-see cinematic event. Marketing impact was a key driver of this international performance. Starting with revenue versus cost, the film production budget is generally estimated to be in the range of 190 to 250 million dollar. When market and distribution expenses are added, the total investment likely rose significantly higher, potentially approaching or exceeding 300 million dollar. This placed the film among more expensive action production of its era, reflecting its said extended production timeline and premium talent involvement. Among these costs, the film generated extraordinary theatrical revenue. Its worldwide box office earnings reached approximately 1.5 billion dollar, even after accounting for the fact that studio do not keep the full box office growth. The theatrical return alone was enough to cover production and marketing costs multiple time over. From a revenue versus cost standpoint, the film crossed the break-even point relatively earlier in its global run, reducing financial risk and moving quickly into clear profit territory. Ancillary income play a major role in amplifying that profitability. Before critical release, this film benefited from strong performance in home entertainment formats such as digital rental, streaming license, Blu-ray, and DVD scale. As part of a popular franchise, the film also increased the value of a bundled franchise collection, driving additional catalog scale of earlier installment. This secondary revenue extended the film earning lie well beyond its theatrical window. Merchandising and brand partnership further strengthen the film financial outcome. This franchise is totally associated with automatic culture, lifestyle bonding, and licensed product. While franchise may not rival toy heavy franchise, the consistent presence of branded collaboration, promotional tying across marketing campaigns contributed incremental revenue and reinforced brand visibility. Another important factor in ancillary income is long-term lines, television broadcast, international syndication, and streaming platform deal ensure ongoing revenue years after the film release. Because the movie hold a significant emotional and cultural position within the franchises, continued to attract viewership during the returns and franchise marathons, maintaining steady residual income over time. While elevating return on investment, this film performed exceptionally well even with a high upfront cost. The ratio between total earning and total expense is strongly positive. The film global appeal allow it to maximize return across multiple regions, reducing dependence on any single market. This diversification strengthens its ROI by spreading financial success across domestic and international audience. Overall, this film was not just profitable but highly successful, successful by blockbuster standard, and its revenue for exceeded its cost. Its ancillary income stream were robust and long lasting. Its return on investment validated the studio's decision to commit significant resource to the project. From the financial analysis perspective, it stands as a textbook example of how a well established franchise can transfer large scale investment into exceptional profitability. Audience reaction to this film were notably intense and wide ranging, reflecting the film's ability to engage viewers across different demographics while encouraging strong emotional and communal response. Unlike many long-running franchise that experience audience fatigue, this installment sparked a level of engagement that suggests viewers felt personally invested in the experience rather than passively consuming another sequel. From a demographic perspective, the audience base was broad and unusually balanced. Younger viewers, particularly teens and adults in their 20s, were drawn to the high-energy action, fast-pacing, and spectacle-driven adrenaline and visual impact. At the same time, older viewers who had followed the franchise from earlier in installment responding more emotionally, having watched the character and themes evolve over time. This segment of the audience view the film as a accumulation rather than a standalone action entry. This multi-generational appeal helped create packed theaters and repeat viewings. Now, if we talk about different cultures and social group also reacting in distinct but complementary way, multicultural audience in particularly express a sense of representation and inclusivity, noting how diverse cast and global tone made the film feel accessible. This helped the movie resonate across ethics and cultural line. It was widely embraced as a mainstream event that welcomed a broad spectrum of viewers. Audience reaction also reflected an awareness of the film place with the franchise. Long-time fan approach it with heightened sensitivity, viewing at a meaningful chapter rather than a routine sequel. Their feedback often acknowledged flawed realism and narrative logic that frame these issues as secondary to the emotional payoff. This suggests that engagement was driven less by critical analysis and more by attachment and loyalty. Casual viewers, on the other hand, tended to respond to the film's accessibility. Even those unfamiliar with earlier installment reported feeling including rather than lost. Feedback from this group often focus on pacing, clarity of character role, and the film's ability to communicate emotion without requiring deep franchise knowledge. This indicates the audience engagement did not depend entirely on prior investment, broadening the film reach. Overall, the audience reaction of this film was marked by strong emotional involvement, high engagement, widespread discussion across demographic group. Viewers' feedback constantly reflecting a sense that the film delivered more than expected, transforming what could have been a routine action release into a sheer audience moment. The depth of engagement combined with its broad demographic appeal explain why the film left a lasting impression on viewers and remain one of the most powerful role in shaping how the film was perceived by audience, critics, and industry at large. Financial success at this scale does more than signal popularity. It actively reshaped narrative around quality, culture, value, and franchise legitimacy. In this case, the film extraordinary earning influence perception in way that extended far beyond sequel. Now we talk about the film's box office. The film's success also elevated the perception of the action genre itself. Action films are often framed as disposable entertainment value primarily for spectacle rather than emotional or thematic audience. The scale of Fast and Furious 7 box office performance suggests that the audience was responded to more than explosion and stunt. This encouraged comparison with other genre heavyweight and help legitimized action cinema is capable of delivering emotional resonance alongside commercial appeal. Another perspective shift occurred in how the franchise was discussed culturally. Before this installment, the series was sometimes characterized as exaggerated or niche. After its record breaking run, it was increasingly described as iconic and influential. Box office success transformed the conversation from whether the franchise has overstayed its welcome to how it managed to remain relevant, impactful. Financial dominance, free fame, excess ambition rather than individualence. The global scale of the box office performance further influenced perception by positioning the film as a uniform culture product. Success across multiple regions suggested universality, reinforcing the idea that its theme and no transcended culture bond. This global acceptance elevated that franchise status and encouraged comparison with other international dominant genres such as superhero and fantasy franchises. Ultimately, the box office performance of Fast and Furious 7 acted as a powerful lens through which the film was judged. It shaped critical interpretation, enhanced studio prestige, and redefined the franchise play within the action genre. Rather than simply reflecting audience approval, the financial success actively constructed the film legacy, ensuring it would be remembered not just as a popular release but as a defining moment in modern blockbuster cinema. From a reviewer perspective, Fast and Furious 7 2015 stand as one of the most defining entries in the franchise, not because it reinvented action cinema but because it understands exactly what it is and fully commit to that identity. In terms of cinematic quality, the film delivered a polished, high energy experience that prioritized momentum and emotional payoff over realism. The pacing is confident, rarely allowing the energy to dip, even when the narrative stretches credibility. The production value is undeniably one of the film's greatest strengths. Large scale action sequences are executed with the technical precision, and the film look expensive in every frame. Practical stunts enhanced by digital effort create a sense of scale that align well with the franchise evaluation into global blockbuster territory. At times, the excess become overwhelming, but it remain consistent with the film's established tone and ambition. Performances are stronger than typically expected for an action-heavy sequel. The ensemble cast work best when functioning as a unit rather than an individual showcase. There is a noticeable sense of sincerity in how the actor approached the role, which helped ground the heightened action. While no single performance is deeply transformative, the collective chemistry add emotional weight and authenticity, particularly in quieter moments. Thematically, the film leans heavily on ideas of loyalty, family, and legacy. These themes are not explored with subtlety, but they are communicated clearly and effectively. The emotional directness is both a strength and a limitation. On one hand, it allows the film to connect easily with a wide audience. On the other, it leaves little room for complexity or not. Among its weaknesses, the film reliance on spectacle can occasionally overshadow character depth and narrative logic. Viewers seeking realism or intricate storytelling may find these elements lacking. However, with this context of its genre and franchise, this film succeed by delivering exactly what it promises: a visually impressive, emotionally resonant action experience that leave a lasting impression despite its flaw. This Fast and Furious 7 is a film that speak very clearly to certain type of viewer while being less suitable for other depending on taste, expectation, and emotional preferences. Understanding who this movie is for require looking beyond plot and focusing on its style, theme, and the kind of emotional experiences prioritized. The movie is especially well suited for action oriented audience who enjoy high intensity spectacle and fast pacing. Viewers who appreciate large scale set pieces, exaggerated physics, and bold visual style will likely find the film engaging from start to finish. The movie does not aim for grounded realism, instead, it embraces an over the top Semantic language tend to respond positively, saying the excess as part of the fun rather than a flaw. In terms of genre preferences, fan of modern blockbuster action film are the core audience. If someone enjoy franchise that emphasize framework, loyalty, and spectacle over intricate plotting, this movie aligning well with those taste. It also appeals strongly to viewers who like an ensemble driven story where the group dynamic is more important than any single character inner journey. The emotional core is delivered broadly and clearly, making it accessible to the viewer who differ direct emotional beat rather than subtitle psychological drama.